Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another EDH deck tech. Today we're doing the GITROG, the Ravenous Ride. I have here supporting us the creature from the Black Lagoon because it is kind of like a frog, and GITROG is a nice frog horror monster. So we'll take a quick read of our command. Ravenous Ride is a 3, 1 black, 1 green for 5 total mana cost for a 6/5 trample haste frog horror mutant monster. And he is a mount, and he has this text. Whenever the GITROG, Ravenous Ride, deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that saddled him this turn. If you do, draw X cards, then put up to X land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, where X is the sacrificed creature's power, and he has saddle 1, so you can saddle him with 1 creature, and then after he deals combat damage to a player, you sacrifice that creature and draw that many cards. So yeah, we have a lot of big scary monsters in this deck, and we sacrifice them to draw a bunch of cards. And I do have a lot of frogs in this deck, so this is kind of my froggy version of this deck. So I wouldn't say this deck is the most competitive, but it is kind of frog themed. So first we'll take a look at the creatures. Okay, let's take a look at our creatures. We have a total of like 42 creatures in this deck because, yeah, we need to saddle our commander and sacrifice our creatures to draw cards. So we have lots of creatures. Starting with some mana dorks, we have Llanowar Elves, the Boreal Druid, and we have a Lupine Prototype, which is a 2 mana 5/5, which we can sacrifice to draw 5 cards. We have a Tireless Provisioner, which has landfall, which works really well with our commander to make food or treasure tokens, probably treasure tokens. We have Ravenous, the Indomitable, a death touch indestructible god. And yeah, it's a, what can I say? It's a 3 mana 5/5. Varagoth, the Bloody Shire. This is a death touch rogue, and he allows us to search our library for a card when we attack with him. Savala, Heart of the Wild. Makes a bunch of mana and draws us a card. Yavimaya Elder gets us some lands. Alright, we have here our Wall of Blood, which allows us to pay life to make our Wall of Blood bigger, and which works really great with our commander because after combat damage, after we know we're going to get to hit our opponent, we can pay a bunch of life to make this Wall of Blood huge to draw tons and tons of cards. Murderous Rider is a kill spell on a instant speed kill spell and also a creature. So Schmeagle is a helpful guide, allows us to, we're gonna have a lot of creatures that die because we're gonna be sacrificing them with a saddle cost, and then the rain tempts us and we get lands and so on and so forth. Woodland Elves, enters the battlefield, get a land. Phyrexian Soul Gorger, an 8/8 for 3 mana that works great with our commander. Goreclaw, creature spells 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast. This is always going to be help reduce our cost because most of our creatures have power 4 or greater. The Slippery Bogbender. Alright, when this enters the battlefield, we put a hexproof counter on target creature. So we target our GITROG monster and give it hexproof. This has flash, so when someone tries to kill our commander, we just flash this in and give it hexproof, and that is a counter, so it just has hexproof. And then the reason I really put this in the deck is this little Bogbender looks like a frog, so there you go. The Hulking Raptor. This is a 4 mana 5/3, but at the beginning of our pre-combat main phase, it allows us to add 2 mana, has ward 2, so that's pretty good. The Daring Fiendbonder is a 5/1 for 4 mana, has haste, and this allows us, when it's in our graveyard, we can put an indestructible counter on our creature, so we can make our GITROG indestructible. Very helpful. Teamer Sabertooth. If there's a board wipe, we can pay 2 mana to bounce our commander back to our hand, or bounce whatever creature we want to save back to our hand. And I just really like this art, and since there's been some bans of some goblins recently, I just needed a deck to put my Sabertooth in, so here he is. The Demagoth, the Woe Eater. This is a 4-mana 7/6. And it works great with our commander, draws a bunch of cards. Sir Conrad the Grim. This is a win con in our deck because we'll probably have to discard a bunch of cards because we'll be drawing so many cards. And whenever a creature is discarded, Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. And this counts our opponent's creatures as well. Whenever they die or they're discarded, they go to the graveyard, and we just kill our opponent. Ashaya, Soul of the Wild, gets really big because it makes all of our creatures count as lands, and it has the power and toughness equal to the amount of lands we control, so this gets really big. God Eternal Ravenous is a Death Touch 5/5, but when it enters the battlefield, it doubles the power of each creature we control. So it just boosts doubles the damage of everything that we're attacking with that turn. Froghemoth. This is a frog, and that is why it's in here. Thragtusk. Thragtusk is great. It's a 5/3. When it enters the battlefield, we gain 5 life, but after we sacrifice it, it leaves behind a 3/3 beast token. Yandora the Grave Gardener. This is a great tree folk druid, and whenever another non-token creature we control dies, we may return it to the battlefield face down as a land. So whenever we sacrifice a creature to our GITROG, it comes back as a land, so it helps us ramp. The Oger Casilum, the Deepest Growth, Trample, God. Whenever this deals combat damage to a player, we reveal that many cards on top of our library. Put a creature card and or land card from among them onto the battlefield. So another one of those cards that just, and then whenever this dies, return it to the battlefield tapped and transformed. So it does transform into, I think it's a land, so that's why it's in here. Psychosis Crawler. This is a win con. We're going to be drawing so many cards. Whenever we draw cards, our opponents lose that much life. This can also get really big because its power and toughness is equal to the number of cards we have in our hand, and we do have ways to keep huge amounts of cards in our hand, so this thing can just be huge by itself. The GITROG Monster. This is a GITROG deck, and so we definitely have to have the OG GITROG Monster. And it's kind of like our backup commander because our win con, our combo win is with the GITROG Monster. So I'll explain that later. Jarl the Glutton. This is a frog spirit. That's why it's in here. It's a frog spirit. Multani is another creature that is huge. It gets really big for the number of lands we control and each land in our graveyard. So also we can get him back from our graveyard into our hand. Kogula, the Titan Ape. When it enters the battlefield, it fights something, and then when it attacks, it destroys pesky artifacts or enchantments. Massacre Worm. This is kind of like our board wipe in the deck. We don't really run a lot of board wipes, so this is kind of what we use to kill all of our opponent's little creatures. Yargle again. Yargle and Multani. This is an 18/6 for 6 mana. This thing is huge. This is amazing. And it's a frog, so we had to put it in here. Tornado Elemental. This is in here because whenever it enters the battlefield, it deals 6 damage to each creature with flying. We don't really have a lot of reach in our deck or any ways to block flying creatures, so this kind of just kills everything that's flying in the sky. Rampaging Baloth, because whenever we use our commander, we get to put a bunch of lands onto the battlefield. This has landfall, so whenever a land enters the battlefield, we get a 4/4 beast token. So as you can, that triggers a lot. Beanstalk Giant is a search for basic land and is also huge, can be huge. Hexrora, this is a frog demon, so of course it's in here. It's not really the best card, but it is a frog, so here it is. The World Breaker is this exiles an artifact, enchantment, or land. So yeah, this can take care of pesky lands, and we can sacrifice a land to return it from our graveyard to our hand. Avenger of Zendikar. This is pretty much in every green landfall deck. Well, like I said, whenever it enters the battlefield, you get a bunch of plant tokens for each land you control. Then whenever a land enters the battlefield, your plant tokens get bigger. Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre. This is in here for our combo. It is a 10/10, but importantly, it has this clause at the end. Whenever it's put into a graveyard, shuffle it and the rest of the graveyard back into your library. So this is part of our combo. Gulta, the Primal Hunger. This is basically a free 12/12 because it's only going to cost like 2 green mana. And Godzilla, the Primal Champion. This has cycling. It's an 11/11, but the important part is whenever you cycle Godzilla, you put a trample counter on a creature you control. So we can give a creature trample, or we can just play a giant 11/11. Alright, that's it for the creatures. Let's take a look at the artifacts. Alright, just a few artifacts in this deck. We use mainly mana dorks and stuff like that to get our lands, so we don't have a lot of artifacts, but we do have this Lotus Petal. It's part of our combo win. We have a Soul Ring because we have to have a Soul Ring. Swiftfoot Boots because we need to protect our commander. He's very important. And the Black Blade Reforged because we have so many lands in our deck. Yeah, our commander can just one-shot people whenever we equip this, and it equips 2 legendary creatures for only 3 mana. Alright, next, let's look at the instants and sorceries. First, we have a Nature's Claim. Destroys an artifact or enchantment. You have a Tainted Strike. This is a very mean card. You probably don't need it, but basically, you can kill someone out of nowhere with infect damage. It's at instant speed, and yeah, you can wipe out one player just at instant speed with infect. Autumn's Veil, protect our commander. Beast Within, destroy pesky permanents. This can hit lands as well, so any kind of permanent you need destroyed, this can do it. Frozen Grip, this is split second, destroy artifact or enchantment. Polywallop, this is in here because it's a frog. It allows you to fight something, and look at the art on that. Look at that frog. Culling Ritual, this is amazing. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less and get black or green mana for each permanent destroyed this way. This is kind of our board wipe. This is probably the best one. Cultivate, ramp. Kodama's Reach, ramp. Exsanguinate, part of our combo. Rampant Growth, ramp. Collective Brutality. This can get rid of cards in your opponent's hand. This can kill creatures, or you can just straight up kill someone for 2 life and you gain 2 life. Oblivion Crown, this is part of our combo. Garruk's Uprising, we're into the enchantments now, so let's get the rest of them here. So our first enchantment was Oblivion Crown. Now we have Garruk's Uprising. Pretty much whenever we cast a creature with power 4 or greater, we draw a card, and creatures we control have trample. So that's a pretty big deal. Spelunky. Basically, the most important part of this card is that whenever we play our lands from our commander, they enter the battlefield untapped. Because if you read our commander, whenever he puts the land cards into the battlefield, they enter tapped. This makes them enter untapped, so we can take advantage of that extra mana right away. Whip of Erebos, lifelink. I like lifelink, and then we can pay 4 to return a creature from our graveyard to the battlefield. Greater Good, this allows us, if our commander is somehow killed or something, we can still sacrifice our giant creatures to draw cards if we need to. We do have to discard 3 cards, so you're gonna want to sacrifice your big creatures. Unnatural Growth. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. Wow, this enchantment is ridiculous. The reason why it's ridiculous is because it's the beginning of each combat. That means when your opponents go into combat, this triggers and makes all your blockers huge and powerful. So even if your opponents are trying to attack you, yeah, this will make your creatures even larger and bigger, and they won't want to attack you. All right, last but not least, we have the lands. Now we have mostly basics in this deck because this, like I said, this is not the most expensive budget, but we do have a couple non-basic lands. We have a Path of Ancestry, we have a Command Tower, we have a Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, a Mosswort Bridge, a Rogue's Passageway, which works really good with our commander to make him unblockable, Reliquary Tower, because we draw so many cards, we want to make sure we don't have to discard them unless we want to discard them. So sometimes you might not want to play this land, sometimes you might, so just kind of depends on the situation. Dockmore Salvage, this is part of our combo. Windswept Heath, Verdant Catacombs, and then the rest are basics. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 basic swamps, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 basic forests. All right, now let's get into the combo. Alright, we're talking about the GITROG monster combo. So let's read the GITROG monster and try to explain this convoluted combo. There are videos on it. If you need to watch one of those, it'll probably help. But our GITROG monster has Death Touch, then at the beginning of upkeep, sacrifice a land or sacrifice the GITROG monster unless you sacrifice a land. But whenever you play, you may play an additional land each turn, and then this clause is the most important. Whenever one or more land cards is put into your graveyard from anywhere, draw a card. All right, so you have your GITROG monster on the field, and you have the Dockmore Salvage. Now, this is a land card, which triggers the last clause of our GITROG monster. So anytime we put this Dockmore Salvage into our graveyard, it's going to trigger the GITROG monster to have us draw a card. And the Dockmore Salvage is important because it has Dredge 2. If you would draw this card instead, you may exile. You may put exactly 2 cards from the top of your library into your graveyard. If you do, return this from your graveyard to your hand. So you go to draw a card. Instead, you could Dredge 2 and then return this to your hand. So here is how this ridiculous combo works. Get the GITROG monster. You put the Oblivion Crown onto the GITROG monster. Oblivion Crown is an enchantment that says the enchanted creature has discarded a card, and this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So as long as the GITROG monster is wearing the crown, you can discard the Dockmore Salvage from your hand with the Oblivion Crown. It goes to the graveyard, it triggers the GITROG monster, and instead of drawing cards, you dredge this back to your hand, and you just continue to discard this card to draw a card. Alright, now while you're doing that, you're dredging through your deck, you're putting a bunch of cards from your deck into your graveyard. And while you're doing that, you may come across a Lotus Petal, and you want to play that Lotus Petal, sacrifice it, and then you have just 1 floating mana. So you have cards like the Lotus Petal to get more mana, and then you also have your Psychosis Crawler. Whenever you draw cards, you're killing your opponent, and you also have Sir Conrad. Whenever a creature is put into your graveyard, you're dinging your opponents for 1. And so with this convoluted combo, you can get unlimited mana with this. Now the way you do this is eventually you'll make it through your library, and you'll want to discard Ulamog to shuffle all your graveyard back into your library, so you can keep doing this combo over and over again. Dredge through your deck, put draw triggers on the stack with the GITROG monster, and dredge your Dockmore Salvage to replay your Lotus Petal. And then eventually, once you have unlimited mana, you can use an X spell like Exsanguinate to just kill all your opponents. Each opponent loses X life, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So with unlimited mana, you just kill them with Exsanguinate. Like I said, there's a lot of videos on the GITROG combo on YouTube. I don't know if I explained it very well, but yeah, there's a lot of combos you can do with the GITROG, but you definitely need the Oblivion Crown, and you need a way to dredge your deck with this Dockmore Salvage. and you need a way to shuffle your graveyard back into your library. So hopefully that was helpful. That's how I like to play with my GITROG, the Ravenous Ride. This is a lot of fun. Like I said, it's a 5 mana 6/5 with trample and haste, so that's just crazy on itself. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, hop on. Also, I forgot to mention, I'm going to have a link in the description to Moxfield, which has a list of all the cards in the deck. So if you want to take a look at the list, yeah, it'll be on Moxfield, and the link will be in the description below.